My name is Niran. I'm 80 years old, and I want to tell you the 4 words immediately, because if you clicked on this with hope in your chest, then honesty is the only decent way to begin. The 4 words are these: what am I seeking? Not what am I buying, not what numbers feel lucky, not what time should I go or what sign should I look for. What am I seeking? Those are the words. And I am telling you now, before anything else, that they will not change the mathematics of the lottery. They will not shift probability. They will not persuade the universe to move the numbers in your direction. They are not magic. But they do change something much more important than the next ticket. They change the quality of your relationship with what you are actually hoping for. And that, if you let it work on you honestly, changes everything. I understand why a title like this catches the attention. I was not born in a life where money was merely symbolic. I was born in northern Thailand, where money was rice, medicine, repairs, school fees, and the difference between sleeping with less fear or more fear. I know what it is to want financial relief, not as greed, but as breath. I know what it is to want the pressure to ease, and because I know that, I also know why the lottery carries such emotional power for many people. It promises something that ordinary life often withholds: sudden change, immediate movement, a solution that does not require years of effort and uncertainty. It promises relief from all the strain at once. And that promise, even when the mind knows the odds, can feel stronger than reason. But here is what almost nobody realizes. The lottery is rarely about money alone. It is about what the money represents emotionally: safety, enoughness, rest, freedom from the constant calculation, freedom from being one accident, one illness, one missed payment away from panic. It is not the ticket itself that matters. It is the life people imagine on the other side of the ticket. That is what they are actually reaching for. And because they do not name that honestly, they keep treating the money as if it were the whole answer. And this is where everything changes. The moment you ask, "What am I seeking?" the ticket is no longer just a ticket. It becomes a mirror. It forces you to see what your own heart has been trying to outsource to chance. If what you are truly seeking is peace, then no ticket can guarantee that. If what you are truly seeking is enoughness, then no amount of money can create that if your mind has not learned how to receive enoughness from within. If what you are seeking is security, then the question becomes deeper. What kind of security? Material, emotional, spiritual, social? Often what we call financial desire is carrying much more than economics inside it. It is carrying our deepest unmet needs. And those needs are not wrong, but they are almost never solved by luck. I spent many years believing that what I lacked externally was the reason I felt constrained internally. It seemed obvious. If there had been more money, then there would have been more room, more options, less fear, more peace. In some practical ways, that is true. Lack is real. Financial pressure is real. I will never insult human difficulty by pretending otherwise. But there is another truth beneath that one. A person can receive more and remain just as anxious. A person can win and still fear loss. A person can move into abundance and keep thinking like someone trapped in scarcity. Why? Because the external change, while useful, does not automatically alter the internal structure, and the internal structure is what creates the lived experience. This is why I say those 4 words matter more than the ticket. What am I seeking? If you ask that question honestly, and if you stay with the answer long enough for the polite answer to fall away, you may find something that changes your life far more than a jackpot. You may discover that what you are really seeking is not money, but permission. Permission to stop bracing. Permission to live without feeling behind. Permission to stop being afraid of the future. Permission to feel that your life is not always one step from collapse. If that is what you are seeking, then your work is not only financial, it is relational. It is about the relationship between you and safety, between you and worth, between you and enough. You know what surprised me most? When I finally began to ask that question honestly in my own life, I realized that many of the things I wanted from outside were things I had never learned to build from within. I wanted certainty from circumstances because I had never cultivated trust in myself. I wanted enoughness from money because I had never stopped measuring my worth against my limitations. I wanted relief from pressure because I had not yet learned how much of the pressure was coming from the way my own mind held life. This was not a pleasant realization, but it was one of the most liberating. Let me explain more directly. The 4 words are powerful because they interrupt automaticity. Most people do not choose the reasons they buy a lottery ticket consciously. They are carried toward it by emotion, by fatigue, by fantasy, by fear, by the longing for a different life. They think the action is about the ticket. It is not. It is about the inner world that makes the ticket feel meaningful. What am I seeking brings consciousness into that movement. It forces a pause. It opens a gap between the impulse and the act. And inside that gap there is a chance, perhaps the first real chance in a long time, to meet yourself honestly. What most people don't realize is that the most expensive thing in their financial life is often not what they spend. It is what they avoid seeing. They avoid seeing the real state of their numbers. They avoid seeing how often they undercharge. They avoid seeing how much of their spending is emotional rather than practical. They avoid seeing how little they trust themselves to hold a larger life if one arrived. They avoid seeing how tightly their identity is tied to the fear of not enough. And all of that avoidance makes the lottery feel like a cleaner path than the slower and more direct work of truth. I am not saying do not ever buy a ticket. That is not my point. My point is this: do not let the ticket remain unconscious. Do not let it be only fantasy. If you are going to buy it, first ask the question, what am I seeking? Ask it slowly. Ask it sincerely. Ask it with enough stillness that the first answer can be followed by the deeper one. Not, I want to win. Of course you want to win. What does winning mean in your heart? What do you imagine it would solve? What would it finally allow you to feel? What would it finally make safe? That is the real territory. And if you begin to work there, whether you ever win anything or not, your life can begin to change in the ways that matter most. And here's what I didn't understand then. I thought that understanding my deeper need would make the desire for money disappear. It did not. It made the desire more honest, more proportionate, more integrated into a larger truth. I could still want better circumstances. I could still want more ease, more margin, more possibility. But I no longer needed to make the money responsible for healing the entire interior life. That changed the pressure on every financial decision I made afterward. It changed how I spent, how I planned, how I asked, how I worked, and how I related to what I had. This is what I mean when I say it changes everything, not the lottery. You, the person who buys the ticket, the one who for one honest moment stops and turns inward before reaching outward, the one who asks the truer question, the one who dares to see that external desire often carries internal pain, and that naming the pain is the beginning of not being ruled by it. That is not mystical. It is deeply human and deeply practical. There is another layer to this too. The question, what am I seeking, does not only reveal longing, it reveals responsibility. Because once you know what you are really seeking, you can no longer pretend that a random event is the only path toward it. If you are seeking peace, what are you doing every day that prevents peace? If you are seeking enoughness, what stories are you still feeding that insist on insufficiency? If you are seeking security, what practical structures are missing in your financial life that could be built by action rather than chance? The question, if you let it, moves you from fantasy into relationship with reality, and reality is where change happens. If these words are helping you see something more clearly, maybe this is the right moment to stay close to this space. There are many people who are not only buying tickets, they are also buying the temporary relief of not having to look honestly at what they are really seeking. And maybe this message can help loosen that in someone else too. So tell me in the comments if you want to be honest with yourself. When you imagine winning money, what is the feeling you are really trying to reach? Freedom? Relief? Respect? Enoughness? Safety? I truly want to know, because naming that changes something. And if this message gave you something real today, subscribe and leave a like so it can reach another person who is still treating the ticket as the whole answer, when it is really just a doorway into a much deeper question.